Yeah, welcome into Running It Straight for another Wednesday afternoon following round 2 action in the NRL. We are talking rugby league for the next hour, people, with a very heavy focus on the One New Zealand Warriors. Myself alongside Kempy, who's sitting in the studio here, resplendent as ever. Kempy with the guns out and ready to rip into an hour of rugby league analysis, mate.
Of course, mate. Someone has to rip into rugby league today, mate. As you know, the first 2 rounds. Oh, I've got to say, who would have picked the Dolphins, I reckon, after round 3 to be sitting top of table?
Wow, who would have picked that top 4 when you look at it? Sea Eagles, Dragons, Dolphins and Broncos as well, who have, I think, been quite a surprise through these first 2 rounds as well. We'll talk about them a bit later on, as well as Reece Walsh, Sai. But coming up in the next hour, we are going to catch up with Warriors. I don't even know whether to call him a prop or a second rower, Kempy, because he's been playing prop the first 2 weeks, but he's going to be out on the edge this week. But we're going to get Mitch Barnett on the show in around about 10 minutes' time. Really interested chatting to him, and bit of a change in roles for him this week, Kempy, and you're interested to see how that's going to play out for him.
Yeah, look, I am. I think that he's, well, on the weekend when they lost Nokore and forward to HIA, they moved Mitch Barnett around the middle and the edge. When they brought Nokore back on, they put him in the middle because they wanted to obviously use some energy up. He had plenty of it with the HIA being on the sideline. But I just think Mitch Barnett has been a revelation in the middle of the park. A lot of the clean-up work that people don't see, he's tidying up a lot of players, I guess, errors in defence especially. He's pulled off some big tackles. Like if you went back and you're in charge of the defensive analysis, Mitch Barnett would be in a lot of the videos. So people don't see the things that he's doing, and he reminds me a lot of Campo. So Campo used to do the same. Like Campo wasn't the most flashiest footballer, but he was such a, the Michael Luck guy. He was just tidying up all the time, all these little indiscretions. And for me on Saturday night against the Sydney City Roosters, he kept them in that game in that first half. Like he was a big reason why. We were talking about it through the commentary about the tackle count. Like I just threw that comment out. He must be leading the tackle count. And like you said, he was way out in front. So his effort is rubbing off on the team. And I think when you go in at halftime at 8-6, when they could have easily been down by a lot more, a lot of it has to come down to Mitch Barnett and the attitude that he's bringing into the Warriors' middle part of the football field. The question I got is this week they move him out to cover Jackson Ford down the left edge. So what happens to the middle of the park when you haven't got Mitch Barnett in it? Do those forwards step up? Does the bench play a big part in it? I know the bench you can't really take it apart for the game on the weekend because of the 3 HIAs, but he's been absolutely superb. I think their player of the first 2 rounds.
We'll talk to him in about 10 minutes' time. We're also going to talk about the Warriors team named yesterday for Teamless Tuesday, the game against Cowboys this weekend, and then we will tuck into round 3 NRL action and some of the other big matchups across the weekend. But just as we do to open the show, just revisit the result from the weekend, which was the Warriors going down to the Roosters 20 points to 12. And as Kempy mentioned, you probably could have looked at a much higher scoreline, especially in that first half where the Roosters just dominated possession and territory as well. But the Warriors are stuck in it with their defence. The 2 questions I've got for you, Kempy, the first one is, it's great what we're seeing from the Warriors in terms of this resilience and this hard work and this graft over the first 2 rounds. Can they sustain that for a 27-game season or 27-round season where they're constantly defending that much and that hard? And the second question is, all well and good to be a strong defensive side, but what's happening on attack? Because it seems like we are maybe just lacking a little bit of creativity in that final third. The kicking game isn't quite there, and I think that showed on Saturday night where no forced dropouts throughout the entire game, so basically no repeat sets down in that final sort of 10-20 metres from our kicking game. Yeah,
and a real good analysis there, Sam. Look, I'm going to give them a bit of a get-out-of-jail card for their attack on Saturday night because of the amount of HIAs and you've got to look at Dylan Walker and where he played. He started in the middle, he ended up at halfback, he played hooker, and then went back out to 5'8", so the spine really didn't get any momentum going and behind their forward pack. You look at Whanua Blake and the way that he pushed through to score that try, he wouldn't have been there last year.
No.
And so they've got him fit, and the team hung in there for long periods of time. And the reason they got done in the end, all those half breaks that Tedesco was making in the first half, and Suoliti come into the back end of the game into his own, was because in the first 11 sets they only completed 2 sets. Now, he said that this morning, Richie Agar, on the breakfast show. We just in the end got caught with the energy. And when you're completing at 92%, I don't care who you are in the competition, you're going to struggle at the back end of a game. And which is what the Warriors got caught in. but they did show glimpses of, I guess, that resilience that you want. I think there was a tell. I think there was, when you're playing poker and they get a poker tell, you know what I mean? You're playing cards and you're looking for what that tell is. I think the Warriors tell is when they lost forward, they lost North, then they lost Nickel Clockstead at the back. 3 new blokes that come to the club, and you've got to think that, especially North and Clockstead, then when they brought blokes on, they didn't really step up into that spot. And that for me is a tell. 3 new guys, they go off 27 rounds. If they lose those new players into this competition, then that's when we're going to see what they're made of, what Andrew Webster's built within this clubs. It didn't look good when those 3 were off. Like you've picked that. They looked a little bit shaky. I'm, like I said, going to give them a get out of jail card for that one. Hopefully they don't come across that again.
No, and I think as well, and we spoke to Matty Johns yesterday, and I made the comment of, I think of all the teams that lost over the weekend, I think the Warriors can probably be the happiest. A lot of the teams that did lose lost very, very poorly. Some lost to teams they shouldn't have lost to. I think the Warriors actually surprisingly kept that game a lot closer than many thought it would be, but also probably what it should have been considering how much ball and possession the Roosters had. Also, the Roosters, that was the highest completion rate across the entire round over the weekend. They had the highest completion rate.
We spoke about that, didn't we? Because the week before, they were terrible. So we knew that Trent Robinson was going to go in there and say to them, you've got to complete. And we spoke about it in the pre-game. What would he have said to them? He said, with this young forward pack that he only had a couple of first graders in that side. It looked like a second grade forward pack. You compete. To compete against this Warriors side, you need to complete. And they went out there and they delivered that across. I just don't think the starting forward pack, but their bench played a big part in it as well. So we never stuck with them in that stakes. You can't do that in this competition. That's the sign of the comp. When you're talking about those top 4 teams that are there at the moment, if you go back and look at their stats, they would have won the stats hands down to get those wins. And unfortunately for this competition, if you start racking up losses, even if they are close losses, they're still losses, and teams are going to get away from you.
Yeah, it's still 2 points. The stat that did interest me, though, is that across the first 2 rounds, the Warriors actually lead the competition in line breaks. So they are actually number 1 in the comp in that regard. I just think when we're getting into that final sort of 20, and one thing that I'd be keen to talk to you about, Kempy, particularly around Sean's kicking game, we're so used to, I guess, those up and under bombs, and I get the rationale there of it gives the chasers time to get to the catcher, and it stops that particular catcher getting any kicking return meters, right? Because it's just a high up and under rather than a sort of low kick that gives them 10 or 20 meters to run forward. But I just wonder if maybe Sean might be better, kicking for a sideline, giving the forwards a break after a tough set, and also not that once again doesn't allow a fullback like a Tedesco who's so dangerous to get running meters. And then of course closer to the line, rather than trying to try our hand on fifth tackle, do we just put it in behind like Penrith do so well and just reset, get another set off the back of it and just go again. So in terms of the kicking, do you think tactically we need to change it up? And do you even offload some of that responsibility to Tamati Martin, to a Wade Egan from hooker? Because it seems like Sean does it all.
Well, look, I think I've seen Wade Egan kick the ball twice, you know what I mean? So he will play a part kicking at some stage. I think he's your third choice. Tamati Martin, he's the same. He admits himself, like, if they're going to get on the last, they're going to run it. He's put a couple of kicks in, and they've been decent kicks. But Sean is your predictable kicker. I like predictability because I think if you can get the kicking right, and even more so these days. So you can't kick the ball out, Sam, because it gets reset and you start straight away. The game is formed these days where it is kept in play and it's played at an up-tempo beat. So what the good kicking coaches are doing is they're working on their kickers but also the kick chase.
Yeah.
And if you look at Penrith, okay, the predictable kicking, I got asked about, isn't the kicking too predictable? Well, you actually want predictable kicking because your chasers know what's coming. And if the chasers know what's coming, they're going to compete for the kick. When I was kicking coach, the very first point that was made, and every kicking coach does this, is that you have to make every kick a 50-50 kick. And what we mean by that is that when you kick the ball, then your chasers make that a good kick. All right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Sean, I don't think he is predictable. I think in his mind, he gets caught in two minds, and sometimes he's going to hit it in the spot at the same time, but then he gets, and like, I'm going to run it, oh no, I'm going to kick it. You know what I mean? And that's when he throws everyone else off. Now, when Nathan Cleary gets the ball, it's very predictable. Like, I'm even sitting at home going, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
And on the back end of it, here comes Crichton, here comes Edwards, you know what I mean? They're coming down at him 100 miles an hour. Your back rowers are getting to the ball. They're going to make it a 50-50 challenge. And that's the difference with the kick chase and the kick. And the other thing about it is it has to be consistent across the board. So it's not just Sean. When you do get other kickers in, even if they can't kick, you have to make the chasers make it a good kick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
no, it's a good point.
I think one of the key areas that Andrew Webster's working on at the moment is their last set options. Like the kicking, if they can lift that game, the kicking game and the kick response, the kick chase, and they're making that on the back of leading the line breaks, they become a more effective side.
100%. I do take your point. It's a good point you make about the kick chasers making the kicking better. We'll take a short break here on Running It Straight. If you've got any questions you want to text through, 8833. Mitch Barnett is coming up after the break. We'll put any of your questions to him. You're listening to Running It Straight here on SENZ, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Back after this. Welcome back into Running It Straight here, coming up 20 minutes past 3, and I've got your questions coming in on Facebook as well as on the text machine, 8833. But right now, it's a privilege to welcome into the show a man that, as Kemp said, has been a bit of a standout over the first 2 rounds for the Warriors. It's Warriors forward Mitch Barnett. G'day, Mitch.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing very, very well.
How you been, Mitch? It's Kemper here, mate. Look, just tell us a little bit about how the feeling is in the camp after the loss on the weekend.
Yeah, a bit disappointed, obviously, with the result, but that's a good thing, I guess. We just know that we've been beating ourselves, and we've got plenty to fix up. So if we can, turn that around this week, it'll be good.
Mitch, one thing that I was keen to sort of get your thoughts on, because I think for a lot of viewers out there watching on the TV or listening to it on the radio, didn't quite get a sense of just how hot it was up there in Sydney. I mean, you had to take drinks breaks throughout the game. It was sort of that humid and hot. Just give us a sense of how tough it was playing up there.
Yeah, obviously, it was very hot, but we made it a lot harder on ourselves, obviously, by the way we attacked and put pressure on our defence, but. It doesn't get any this week. We're in Townsville, so we have to adapt to that and play a lot better.
Hey, Mitch, you've been, I think, commendable in the middle of the park there when you're defending. What is it like at the moment, mate? What do you like about the defence and the way that it sort of hung in there in the first half after having such a low completion set rate?
Yeah, look, we're working hard for each other. We're not getting things right all the time, but we're scrambling well. So we're defending as a team, which is really helping us at the moment. But yeah, like I said just before, we're putting too much pressure on ourselves in attack. So we need to fix that, and hopefully we can do that this week.
This week you're going out to, I'm guessing, the left edge for Jackson Forward. Does that mean that we'll see you at some stage go back into the middle of the park, or will you play the 80 minutes out there?
Yeah, look, at this stage, I think I'll be definitely on the left edge to start with, and then maybe work my way into the middle of the field. Not too sure. It depends on sort of the game cycle. So just wait and see sort of what pans out, but I'll be out there for a fair chance, that's for sure. Yeah,
you've got obviously a couple of new blokes in there this weekend. Tane Tuapiki at the back at fullback. How's he shaping up for this week as NRL debut?
Yeah, look, he's a little live wire, Tane. I'm really excited to see him go. We sort of need to do our job for him, and that's just play well and give him the ball in good spots and see if he can take his opportunities. So, very excited to see him go, and obviously the skipper's 200th game. The boys are looking to put a big performance in for both of them.
Yeah, good work for Tohu, his 200th game, like you just said. But just the back end of the sets, has there been much talk about the kicking game and the finishing to sets and the support in and around the kicker? Yeah, that's one subject we've been touching on, and we need to be a lot better in all parts of that. I thought the first game we sort of got our kick wrong, but then last week I thought we got our kick right and we didn't back the kicker up. So we need to all be on the same page there, and if we can do that, I'm hoping we can turn the result.
Mitch, you've got a lot of NRL experience under you, and you're in a pack there that also has a lot of NRL games, and we just talked about Tohu going for his 200th, but then you got the likes of Adam Whanua-Blake and Wade Egan around you. How much, I guess, of the leadership responsibility do you see yourself holding in the team around those guys who, have also played a lot of NRL games?
Yeah, look, for me, I don't really need to go out of my way to try and lead. I just got to play my natural game, and everything just sort of falls into place. I love sort of leaning on blokes like Adam and that as well. He's got a lot of experience under his belt, and Wade, he sees the game very well and very crafty. So just what I do naturally is just sort of lead my actions. I try to anyways, and that's all I've been doing.
How much of a licence have you got, mate, to actually, I guess, pull blokes in the line if they're not pulling their weight?
Oh, yeah, look, I think everyone's got a license to do that. Myself personally, I'd do that naturally. I think that's what makes a good teammate, giving people honest feedback, and that's a license to everyone. It's not just for me or to anyone like that. So that's what makes a good squad when people can receive honest feedback. So I haven't had to do that at this stage. Everyone's been swimming in the right direction, but I'd expect someone to pull me in the line too if need be.
Mitch, I feel like I know how you're going to answer this one, probably quite diplomatically, but we've talked a lot about how the comp seems really, really tight this year, just through those first two rounds. There's been a lot of big upsets. Teams have sort of, lower teams have sort of closed the gap on some of those top teams. Is it something that, you guys now week to week just have a lot more confidence knowing that the comp's sort of a lot closer? I mean, it seems like teams are going into these games just buoyed up by sort of seeing what's going on in some of the other games around them. Or do you guys, I know, like I said, you're probably going to say it diplomatically and say you focus on your own game. But yeah, how have you guys sort of made out the rest of the comp through the first two rounds?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting question, that one, because I'm not sure if some of the teams have got all their, stars out in the paddock. But for us personally, we've, won a tight one against the Knights there and down at Wellington. And then, we lost one on the weekend against the Roosters, which, they dug deep and they did the small parts of the area better than us. So for us going forward, we've got a tough run coming ahead and no tougher than the Cowboys. They're coming off a loss too. So we need to, fix up what we did wrong last week and get our sort of transitions right. And if we can do that, hopefully we can see a better result.
Mate, coming out of the off-season and you're 2 games into the competition now, have you seen good signs of delivery in the first 2 rounds? And what I'm asking is that you can actually keep lifting the bar?
Yeah, we're by no means a finished product, which is the beauty for us. We've got so much more growth, and we're still a very new side for, in terms of games spent together. A lot of new boys in there and the likes of that. So we've got a lot of growth, like I said, going forward, and we just need to. We can't waste a day, whether it's training or playing. We need to really work on our skills, individual skills and team skills. So we can do that. We can keep growing.
Mitch, there's been a couple of texts coming in here on the text machine. I'll paraphrase them because they're all pretty similar. They're all asking about how the influence of Kaikaira France, and it seems like, particularly around the ruck, you guys are doing a great job of slowing the play the ball speed down. And you think of a side like the Roosters, who that's sort of their bread and butter, and we were able to sort of keep it quite slow for them. Just, I guess, give the fans a bit of a sense of the work that Kaikaira France has been doing with you guys in the sort of wrestle and the impact that's had.
Yeah, well, Kai and John done a lot of work with us, and we've just sort of learned some technical things that we can, in terms of body position and stuff like that. But we worked really hard on that, doing a few sessions a week, and probably getting our conditioning up on that has really helped us. I think in terms of our fitness in the wrestle, it's a different type of conditioning. And so doing that sort of thing and the technical side of it, we're all on the same page and hopefully moving the same way. So and then obviously who he is, his presence helps. Like, we've all got massive respect for him, and he's a very humble guy and easy to approach. So we just want to do well for everyone.
Is it a little bit sort of bizarre, Mitch? I know teams probably do work on the wrestle, quite a bit during their week. But is it sort of weird it coming from a different angle, a different person, and a UFC fighter?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. The UFC fan myself, so but like having his opinion, he can do it from a wrestle background, and then when you get Webb in there who gets the football side of it, and they both go together. You get some really good ideas out of it. So, we've still a lot of growth that we can do in that area. But we've definitely improved from day one to now, that's for sure. And
just a question before we finish up, Mitch, is coming from Ted here, and I'm not sure if you would have had one because I know we haven't played a game at Mount Smart yet, but he says, has Mitch had a Fritz's wiener yet?
No, definitely not. We don't know what it is.
I can tell you when you get to Mount Smart, mate, it might become your morning routine. So really appreciate you coming on, Mitch, mate. Big game this weekend up in Townsville against the Cowboys, so wish you all the best. Thanks heaps for coming on.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me, guys.
There you go, Mitch Barnett there from the Warriors. And, I'm sure once he gets a taste of the Fritz's wieners, Kemp, you'll be all over them.
Nice question, Ted. Look, just the way that he was speaking about accountability for me in that conversation and leading by example, he's been doing that the first 2 weeks. I think he's a key product this year to make sure that they can continually stay within the race. And pushing him out on the edge, I think I've seen enough of Mitch Barnett being in the middle of the park for the rest of the year. So the sooner that we can get the Jackson Fords back, then the edge player so he can move back in there. He's just one of the areas that we really struggled at, why we were getting caught out on the edges was actually doing the job in the middle, and Mitch has tidied that right up. Yeah, and there was a question actually on our Facebook stream about the speed of the play of the ball. Someone said the speed of the play ball was slow compared to the likes of the Penrith and Roosters, but I actually disagree. If you look at the stats across the first 2 rounds, our play the ball speed has been much faster than our opposition. I think a big part of that is being able to hold them down longer in the tackle, and Kai Kara-France working with the forwards on that too. I did try and ask Mitch there, I probably didn't phrase it very well, Kempy, but maybe you can add to something off the back of it. Like, the players must be looking at the comp this year and just seeing some of these results, and it must just give you a little bit of confidence, because in the past you saw Penrith scoring 60, 70 points, you saw Melbourne, and it must have affected you mentally going into a game. I know they're professional athletes, I know they're going in, wanting to win every game, but surely just noticing that the comp seems a bit tighter must bore you up if you're a team that's been down the bottom for a couple of years. Oh, 100%. We've talked about it the first 2 weeks, you just can't wait for the next game to come on TV. The only game that I've been disappointed with was West Tigers on the weekend. Yeah. They actually lived up to expectations. They were terrible. But everyone else who's gone out and played each other, it's been a real contest. The thing that's really interesting over the first 2 weeks is there's been a lot of good players that haven't been playing.
That's true.
And what that has done is it has evened up the competition, and teams have been taking full advantage of that. We got to look out for the actual competition going to another level when teams actually get back to full strength.
Yeah.
So whilst you get these teams, you see this in the EPL quite a bit, Sam. You get the likes of a Leeds United or a Wolves jump out to a 2 or 3 game win early on in the season, but come the back end of the season they're down the bottom. We're going to look out when all the players start coming back. When players start coming back, teams start to form combinations, and their rosters tell you that. That's why all the good pundits have picked put all of their analysis into the rosters, then that's when we'll see how these teams cope.
Yeah, and I know Matty on his Fox show on Sunday night said you got to wait for 6 rounds before you get an idea.
Always wait for 6 rounds.
Yeah, before you get an idea of how teams really tracking. We'll take a short break for news, sport and weather. We will look ahead towards this weekend's game against the Cowboys, go through the team list as well. Running it straight here on SENZ thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Back after news. Running it straight, we're coming up 26 minutes away from 4 o'clock. If you want to send in a message, 8833, or you can jump on our live streams on Facebook, YouTube, drop us a comment or a question for Kempy, and we'll discuss it. But this weekend, Cowboys Warriors up in Townsville, 7:30 kickoff. We'll have the live call here for you on SENZ, and I'll just run through the team lists quickly for you. So the Warriors team, actually no, I'll start with the Cowboys team. Tom Chester comes in for Scott Drinkwater, who of course is going to face a bit of time on the sidelines after that high shot on Corey Oates. So he's only played 1 NRL game. Tom Chester comes in for a second at fullback. Kyle Murray Taulangi on the wings, Valentine Holmes, and then forgive me for this one, is it Jehamat Shibasaki? He'll be in the centres. Tom Dearden and Chad Townsend in the halves. Then Jordan McLean, Ruben Cotter, the props. Reece Robson will be the starting hooker. Then Cohen Hess, Jeremiah Nanai and Jason Tomalolo in the second row. Their interchange is Jake Granville, Griffin Neem, Jermaine Tanoa Brown going up against his former club, and James Tarmo for the Cowboys. The Warriors team... coming in at fullback for Charles Nickel-Klukstad is Tain Tuopaki, who's making his NRL debut and impressing in the New South Wales Cup as well. I'll talk to Kempy about him shortly. On the wings, got Edward Cossey, Marcelo Montoya, the two centres unchanged, Braden Williami and Adam Pompey. The two halves, Tamati Martin, Sean Johnson. The front rowers, Bunty Afoa, Eden Whanua, Blake, Wade Egan, the hooker, then Mitch Barnett in the second row this week round with Maratini Akore and Tohu Harris, the lock. On the interchange, Dylan Walker, Josh Curran, Bailey Siren and Tom Ale, so a pretty relatively unchanged team apart from those forced changes. So Bunty Afoa coming in for Jackson Ford and Mitch Barnett switching with him. And then, of course, the fullback there with Tuopaki taking over from Charles Nickel-Klukstad. So... Kempy, let's start with the Warriors team that they named yesterday afternoon. What do you make of the side, the sort of shifts that they've had to make, and guys like Bunty Afoa starting the game there at prop?
Yep, they're going to be under immense pressure in the middle of the park. If you have a look at the Cowboys side, they've got to pick the big side. Their bench especially, with Griffin Neem on there along with James Tarmo. And, of course, Tanoa Brown, who we know only too well at the Warriors. You've got three big boppers coming off, and they've picked the hooker on there, and Jake Granville to come on and play his part as well. So they're going down the middle of the park, without a doubt, against the Warriors side. No Mitch Barnett there in the middle of the park has me a little bit worried. The other part, which has been really evident over the last 2 weeks, is how coaches have been targeting Sean Johnson. Now, you got young Nanai coming out there on that right edge running good lines, and did you see the try he scored on the weekend? You only have to give him half a foot, and he is going to carve you to pieces. So if they do the job in the middle, expect the Cowboys to go down that right edge, plenty of points in and around Nanai and that right edge too. So it's going to be a really tough job for the Warriors on a very hot, humid night up there in Townsville on Saturday. Be lots of fluid taken on board. Young Tain at fullback. Now, it's a debut that you would hope would have been played at home, and whether that you would probably be feeling a lot more comfortable about. He'd have a lot of energy. Let's hope that he doesn't use up all that nervous energy before the game, before he gets the kickoff, because he's going to be put under a lot of pressure too. He's short in stature. You've got one of the best kickers in the game, and Chad Townsend coming down on you. They would work on that as well. He's pretty astute coach, is the Cowboys coach, and I just think they've got their work cut out on Saturday night, the Warriors. I'm a little bit worried about the middle of the park. I'm a little bit worried about the bench coming on with Mitch Barnett out there on the edge. And, of course, a fullback. I know that when I looked at the sides, Sammy, I've got to say the changes looked exactly the same. Two fullbacks, a couple of outside backs coming in. And then you've got this big forward battle going on again, but man, they've got a big forward pack.
Yeah, I personally think the Cowboys played against the Raiders in round one, the best half of football across the 2 rounds. I thought they were almost impeccable, and then they just gave it up in the second half. And then against the Broncos, I actually thought in the first half they also were on top of them, and they dominated. It's just that second half completely flipped on its head. Scott Drinkwater goes off, Reece Walsh opens the game up, and away they go. So
personally, I don't think they've been out of second gear.
So, no, I think 100%. I think the Cowboys look dangerous. I think they really do look dangerous, and I still think they've got all that cohesion that they had last year. It will be interesting to see how Chester slots in at fullback and how he works, because Drinkwater is obviously such a big part of their open field play, where he just makes those quick breaks so fast as well. But for everyone who hasn't seen, go and watch Tain Tuopaki's highlights on YouTube, and he was playing in the New South Wales Cup last week. He's an exciting young talent, Kempy, and I am really looking forward to watching him debut, and hopefully the bright lights don't get to him too much. So up in Townsville, 7:30 on Saturday night. Where's your head and heart sort of going for what the result might be?
Oh, look, I think the competition at the moment, as we've seen with all these tight scores, there's not a hell of a lot of points scored in it, but I'm a little bit worried that the Cowboys, desperate for a win, might get away on the Warriors here. If they don't knuckle down, if they start like they did against the Sydney City up in Townsville, then I think it would be a really long night. Tain, I think, playing at fullback, he's got the pedigree. It's exactly the same pedigree as Brent Webb, player of the year in the Queensland Cup. Comes from a good club, and finally makes his debut in the NRL. I'm expecting him to have a solid game. I'm just a little bit worried about that right edge in the middle at the moment. So, yeah, it could be for me maybe the first blowout I'm looking at. I think the Cowboys, if they hit third and fourth gear, look out.
I'm trying to decide where I'm going to lean. I'm just going to keep my powder dry. I think I need to wait until later in the week and see where my heart falls. My head sort of tells me, I agree with you that I think the Cowboys are due to just come out of the gates flying, which does scare me a little bit. But at the same time, if we see what we've seen from the Warriors the last few weeks defensively, by all means, I think they have a chance to tip them up in Townsville.
The other one too, Sam, is I actually think the young kid that they've picked at fullback starts on the wing. I think Valentine Holmes starts at fullback.
I tend to agree with you there. I think they'll shift it around before kickoff. No backs on the bench though for the Cowboys, which is interesting to me, given the concussions that we've been having across the first 2 rounds. I just want to get through a couple of texts here before we do take a break, Kemp, because there's been a lot that have come in. First of all, Dave says, love running it straight. Keep up the good work, fellas. Great interviews and insights. Cheers, Dave. Ken says, Kempy, you're still saying Dragons are going to get the wooden spoon. There's some real class on that side and some great young talent.
Kenny,
I tell you what, they did surprise. Yeah, they did surprise though, Kempy. I mean, I almost off that one game am taken aback with how cohesive they were. I just thought they'd be totally disjointed. And the forward pack really is, when you look at it on paper, I think the worst forward pack in the comp. But they did play impressively against the Titans. I
thought Murdoch Masala was very good down that left edge.
He was
he's making breaks and putting question marks to the defence all the time. You're right around the young blokes. Ben Hunt plays well, but come on, it was only the Titans. The Titans had a 12-2 lead before they just went bang, bang, bang before half-time and got in front there, St. George. I just think at the moment the competition is a little bit of a false competition because you haven't got everyone back through the teams that these rosters know what we know the rosters are, and you've got teams at the top which aren't really going to be there, I don't think, at the end of the year. Could be proven wrong. It might be one of those years, but
no, I definitely agree. Like it's yeah, you got to preface everything by saying it's only round 2, and teams like the Dolphins, I mean, it's a long season. They don't have a lot of depth as things start to get a bit tougher.
I just know that you go through double-figure injuries.
Yeah.
All right. So it does come down to your roster and where you put players in. If some teams lose rosters, and that's what I mean about the tell on the Warriors in the weekend, two edge players and a fullback. Well, it was a tell. The roster wasn't going to work. You know, they lost their way a little bit and couldn't actually get that fluidity going. And yet we're looking at a Sydney City team that has got lots of players to come back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think at the moment, Ken, you know, it's good to, if you're a St. George supporter, enjoy them while they're on top at the moment.
Take a screenshot. I've always said, Kempy, I'll say it till the cows come home, the team that wins the comp is the team that stays the fittest. Another text in here, speaking of kick chase, how big a loss is DWZ, and is it time to give Vilea a shot at centre as Pompey seems to be playing in slow motion, especially on the kick chase? Yeah,
well, it depends on where his head is, Vilea, in the club, and whether or not he can get Adams' position. I think there will be changes in that backline, but I don't think they'll be because of form. I think they'll be because of injury.
Mark says, hey, Kempy and Sam, really think the Warriors can upset the Cowboys this weekend, being without at least 2 of their very best players in Hiku and Drinkwater. Peter Hiku as well is a massive part of that Cowboys team. Sean says, Arvo boys, if the 11-day stand down for concussion coming in, maybe, will this mean the squads will be made bigger? Will they make playing day squads larger, I guess is what he's saying. The 11 days will stop teams faking HIA tests. It will definitely test the depth of teams. That's in regards to, I don't think that has come in yet, hasn't it? But they've floated the idea of 11-day mandatory stand down.
Well, it's a mandatory stand down here in New Zealand of 2 weeks if you're concussed in rugby league in this country. So I think it will come into play. Look, the interesting part about this is the doctors that all sit in the bunker now and can pull players off of willy-nilly. We saw that in round 1. We saw it in round 2. How long does that hang around? Like, cost-wise, let's talk about cost-wise. You know, 8 games across the round, 8 doctors, you know, and you've got them just there guessing on concussion. Like, it's sort of, I still think that's mate, it's the elephant in the room. Like, why have a doctor at a club if you've got one in a bunker? Seriously.
Yeah, okay.
And I know doctors, they're very ethical people. How does the doctor on the sideline feel when a doctor in the bunker overrules him?
Yeah, and not as close to the action as well. I know they see all the different. Maybe that
But
is.
they've been working with the players all year. They've been doing all of the testing. They know exactly what the player's going through, and then they get a call from a bunker saying, "No, you got to pull that player off." What does a doctor on your team doctor sit there go? Why am I here?
Yeah, what am I getting paid for? We do need to move along. I'll just throw this one out to you before we take the break because we're going to talk through the rest of the games after the break. Kempy, who you're picking? Roosters, Rabbitohs. Need a hand with my tipping.
Game of the round.
I'll tell you what. Everyone needs help with their tipping at this stage. Starting to fall behind. I usually picture the respective names fighting it out. Who would win? But I can't decide. Who would win if a rabbit and a rooster had a fight? Maybe a rooster because of the beak. Cheers for the help. Love the show on Wednesday.
I'm going south.
I love the show on a Wednesday. Gets that energy going for Thursday nights. No name on that text, but appreciate you. 8833 if you want to get your thoughts in. We will go through some of the other big matchups coming up this weekend here on Running It Straight, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. 10 minutes away from 4 here on Running It Straight, and I can tell you just fresh off the press, it's come out on NRL.com that the ARLC have approved new head injury protocols. The 11-day stand down will be mandatory following a diagnosed concussion. So there you go, just what we were talking about before. The other games on this round, Kempy, we'll just run through them really quickly, and you can give your tips out so that people can go 8 from 8 in their competitions.
100%.
Sea Eagles, Eels tomorrow night. Sea Eagles sitting pretty at the top. You think Manly get it done?
I think Manly are the form team of the competition at the moment. But what about the Eels? Who would have thought the Eels are sitting in 16th position?
Yeah, and Matty was saying that to that. Very worried about the Eels going because they've got another 2 very hard games coming up in Penrith and Sydney. And they could go 0-5 to start the season, which after a grand final is just about the worst start. Well, it is the worst start to a season you could have. Friday night 8 o'clock game is the Knights and the Dolphins. You think the Dolphins keep it going 3-0?
I do. I think the Dolphins get another one. Kalen Ponga's out and they're struggling big time are the Knights. I think the Dolphins, just a bit of resilience, bit of confidence under Wayne Bennett, and again, they get another 2 points.
Roosters, Rabbitohs, 10 p.m. You said it's the game of the round. It is the game of the round, so what do you reckon?
Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Victor Radley are back. The only player missing is Tuipulotu in the edge before they start to look good. I think they start building on that win next week, this week, and it's going to be a really good game, but I think South's hurt after that Penrith loss.
Yep.
After especially what Latrell Mitchell said, and I'm expecting South to bounce back.
So you reckon South get the dub?
I do.
I still think the Roosters, they have a lot more to give. I still think they're getting the wheels going, and that we've seen that the last few seasons, so I'm with you there on the Rabbits. Titans Storm Saturday 5 p.m, which is interesting because the Storm haven't looked anywhere near the Storm that we've known in the past. The Titans going down to the Dragons, though, so... What you probably
would have thought that Canterbury would go down there after their loss.
Oh, 100%. That was
win
the
the way that they did.
That was the surprise result.
You know
for
what
me.
I mean?
Yeah.
I got them as the biggest sliders this year, Melbourne. So I don't think they lose 2 in a row. I just think they lose some games that people don't expect them to lose. I'm expecting Wayne Bellyache to get them up.
Storm then over the Titans. We've already given the Warriors, Cowboys, Broncos, Dragons, 9:30 on Saturday night.
Broncos.
Should be an easy win for the Broncos. But hey, Kenny, we'll wait and see. Reece Walsh, will he back it up? And then Bulldogs, Wests on Sunday at 6 p.m. Gee, the Wests are looking...
Tigers by 50.
If you're a get out of it. Tigers or Bulldogs?
Bulldogs, mate.
If you're a Tigers fan, man, it is... I'd almost be panic stations. And I've heard as well that the disconnect between Tim Sheens, Robbie Farah and Benji Marshall, you got to remember that Tim Sheens is 70 years old, hasn't coached in the NRL for a good part of 10 years, and the title he won was 18 years ago. I just think they haven't quite got it right, that coaching setup.
I just don't think they got the stock. Yeah.
Well, I mean, on paper, the forward pack is fine, but they just are not delivering.
I think Luke Brooks...
he's got to go.
He's got to go.
Yeah, he's got to go. The question's got to be asked. He's on $1 million as well, which is highly concerning for their salary cap. And then final game on the Sunday, the Sharks, the Raiders. The Sharks, to me, were another big surprise. I didn't expect them to beat the Eels with Nico Hines out, but they're up against the Raiders up in Canberra. What do you reckon?
Sharkies.
Yep.
Yeah. I love what Craig Fitzgibbon's done to the Sharks. Just the way they came out and won that game. That was a game of the round last week.
They don't have the big names, but they just have the cohesion. They just have the team humming together.
They do. The resilience of that side. They'll be there at the end of the year, guarantee it.
There you go. So there you go. Those are our tips for the round. Jot them down if you want to go 8 from 8 listening to Kempy or 0 from 8 listening to me. You can blame it on one of us come next week. We'll take another short break and come back and wrap the show afterwards. Yeah, we're coming up to 4 o'clock, the run home not far away. I think Stephen McIver's sitting in the chair between 4 and 7 today. Keep it together, Kempy, please. Only a minute to go. Paul, you've texted in saying, first time listener to the show, absolutely fantastic. You guys really know your league. It'll definitely help me with my multi on the weekend. Appreciate the first half of your text, Paul, but I have to be honest with you. I'm currently sitting 161,000th in the NRL tipping comp at the moment. So do not trust me at all.
Not on a golf course either.
My score's a lot lower on a golf course than it is in my tipping.
Well, that's because you're throwing them at the greens.
I throw my tips away. I tell you, I think I got 3 out of 8 last week, but that's just the NRL. I actually like it. It's back to its best, Kempy. Back to being its unpredictable best.
Honestly, it is the best game at the moment. I can't believe how good the football is. I can't wait for tomorrow night.
Yeah, the quality is ramped up big time. So kicking off tomorrow night, the Eels playing, and I've forgotten who they're playing now, Kempy.
Well,
we've got the Warriors Cowboys Saturday night live here on SENZ.